Hello and welcome to Guiding Gettysburg. The date is June 26, 1863. The citizens of Gettysburg are on high alert because they were advised by their governor, Andrew Curtin, that the Confederates were now in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, some 25 miles to the west. Curtin advised the merchants to send their most expensive things out of town on trains and wagons, and he advised the people to hide away their valuables and anything that Confederates might be looking for. The black people of town began to think about a place to escape to, and they made up bedrolls and were ready to leave at a moment's notice. It was a very scary time for the citizens. They had no army there at the time, and their local militia was away on training camp. So it was a hard time for them. A local woman named Sarah Broadhead lived on Chambersburg Street in town. From her back porch, she could see into the mountains and the campfires of the Confederate soldiers at night. She knew that they were in the hills and the trouble would be coming to town. Sarah began keeping a diary of these days of the Gettysburg campaign, and we owe her a huge debt of gratitude for her work. The Confederate Army entered Gettysburg on the afternoon of June 26th. Several of the townspeople turned out on the sidewalks, and they were appalled at what they saw. Men were dressed in rags, looking like they haven't had a good meal in weeks. This was the state of the Confederate Army. They were desperate. Many of them were barefoot, dirty, and they smelled to high heaven. Their commander was a man named Jubal Early. He was known as General Lee's bad old man. Early got this reputation because he was the only general who would dare to curse in front of Robert E. Lee. This was something that just was not done at the time out of respect. Early got away with it. He intimidated people because he was tall and had a snarl on his face all the time. His own men were afraid of him. But Early was a smart man. In the previous time, he was a lawyer, and a smart one at that. Early came into town and made demands on the president of the town council, whose name was David Kendallhart. Early proceeded to give a list of demands of things like flour, sugar, coffee, whiskey, shoes, and hats, none of which were left in Gettysburg. Anything of value had been sent out on the wagons or on the trains. Even the money from the banks was gone. Kendallhart explained this to General Early, and he stated that if the general would like to, his men could go into the stores and take what they wanted. All Gettysburg people wanted was to be free from the Confederates and live a peaceful life again. Early soldiers did go into the stores, but they found very little. Mostly the things were dry goods, things like aprons, tablecloths, women's bonnets, that kind of thing. Some of the soldiers did purchase things for their wives back home, but there was little that the soldiers themselves could use. It is said that the Confederates acted in a respectful manner while in town. The black people, on the other hand, had a different idea. 25 black citizens were rounded up, and they stood in front of Christ Lutheran Church on Chambersburg Street. One of these people was a woman named Elizabeth Butler. She was a washerwoman for the McCreary family, and they were very fond of her. They gave her the name Old Liz. Old Liz saw her chance to escape from the guard on Chambersburg Street. She ran up the stairs into the church, and once inside she found another set of stairs leading up to the cupola. Elizabeth stayed in the cupola for the duration of the time while the Confederates were in town. She had no food, no water, and lived in fear of her life because any minute a Confederate officer may go into the cupola to use it as a scouting point. Elizabeth made it through the 2.5 days of the Confederate invasion. The 24 others were not so fortunate. They would most likely be sold as slaves in the South. The people of Gettysburg were fortunate that their homes and their lives had been spared by Jubal Early's army. There was much destruction, however. 10 train cars were damaged. The bridge over Rock Creek was destroyed, and the flagpole in the center of town was chopped down, not to mention numerous telegraph poles. However, the telegraph key was hidden, so the Confederates were not able to obtain that. This would not be the last time that people in town would see Jubal Early. A sense of foreboding hung in the air, and rightly so. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe. See you soon.